Well, this is Monday afternoon, and I'm glad to say we're going back to Donegal. I say that with a certain wistful note of sadness that we may explore later on, but in Donegal, you will find Pat McGart. How are you today,
Afternoon,
Pat?
Jude. I'm grand, thank you. I don't know what you're getting at. That was a cheap trade.
I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
We have more important business.
Yes.
Let's get to there's an awful lot of things happening. You know, normally, and you come to summertime, there's nothing really happening. But there seems to be an awful lot of things happening here at the moment. Maybe when we get into June and July, there'll be less, but I doubt it. Anyway, the big item at the top of my list is what was covered widely by the BBC and everybody else was the Orange Centennial Parade, which started at Stormont, made its way all the way, I think, to City Hall, Belfast City Hall, which is a fair walk, I'll tell you. And they were said to be 100,000 people at it. Now, are you impressed by that, Pat?
Jude, no, I'm not actually. By the way, just to go back on one thing you said there, Lord Kilclooney tweeted on Saturday that it had not been covered by the BBC, ITV, or Sky. He said the only people, as far as I remember, he said covered were RT and somebody else who's some other Talk TV, I think it might have been the news station. So, and it, by the way, didn't get a massive coverage on the BBC.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'm wrong, Pat. It did cover.
Paul Given the Stormont thing today. I heard him on Talkback saying, and one station that's very biased towards the unions, but so I don't know who he was referring to there, but I presume it's the BBC. But anyway, get that aside, Jude.
Yeah.
No, Jude, I listened to quite a lot of the coverage, and I watched Vincent Kearney, the northern editor of RT, on Saturday. Yeah. And Jude, know the term sort of Back to the Future or backwoods, man. Like Mervyn Gibson finished his speech with "No surrender." You know, Jude, if that's what unionism has to offer in 2022, with the demographics changing, the world around us changing, Brexit and everything else, and and the Sinn Féin in the majority at Parliament, and they've lost Belfast City Council. If they think that they can hold back the tide by no surrender, Jude, God help us.
Well, I'm tempted now, and I'll yield to the temptation to cite Mervyn Gibson's exact words. He said, "It doesn't matter what you promise or offer. It doesn't matter if every day was a 12th of July. If it's not under the Union Jack, then count us out. British we are, and British we'll stay." And the cry to those who seek to persuade us about the protocol or to push us into a united Ireland is still the same. No surrender.
Yeah.
I think that's, well, are you frightened at all by that, Pat?
No, Jude, I'm not. No, Jude. Jude, see this sort of thing? I think that's sort of the usual saber rattling. And here's the thing, Jude. I don't mean this in the least bit threatening. I have met Republicans on the other side who come out with this crap as well, and they are quite ready to do it. So if I know that the two of them could get at it, if this sort of, but the rest of us, and I hope it's the rest of us, we're going to have to come to some accommodation. The unions, Jude, let me repeat. This place was set up for them artificially, and now that artificial construct is coming to an end. And there are many people here with different views. You can take in Sinn Féin, the Alliance Party, the SDLP, official unionists, and what is it someone said the last day? There used to be orange and green, now there's orange, green, and other, right? Mm-hmm. But Jude, all that has to be addressed. And the days of unionism just getting their own way, saying no, and they're now turning around and saying it doesn't matter whether it's democratic or not. We as a minority are going to stop the majority getting their way. And Jude, I'm saying that day is over.
Well, they're getting an example of it, from the DUP. If you stop to think about it, there's a minority who are stopping the Assembly and the Executive from getting together.
Well, wait, just stop you there again. What do you make? John Tong said something last week. Now, I don't understand the mechanics of it, but he said that he's talking about weighted majorities. No, rather than just orange and green.
For what? For a
votes on the Assembly. For votes in the Assembly.
For votes in the Assembly. A weighted majority.
Weighted majority. In other words,
how do you think of that yourself?
I think it probably, Jude, I was listening a wee bit today again. Jude, the DUP has played a role, no matter what. They're closing down the assembly this time, and contrary to their spin, they played a major role in the shutting down. They trying to push it all over in Sinn Féin, but look, that's just blatantly and clearly not the case. There was, what was it, 650 million gone missing on a scheme that was run by 2 DUP ministers, and the most of the beneficiaries were not in places like the bog side of the Creggan. They were big farmers and so on, and big industry. So Martin McGuinness went at the time to Arlene Foster and asked her to step aside so it had a proper investigation. She refused. So the DUP's role and the storm and fall collapse at that occasion was quite significant. So the DUP have played a major role on the 2 occasions storm has come down. So I don't buy it.
Well, easy. I do. I think a lot of people don't, but at the same time, it sounds like an easy equation. And I noticed Emma Little Pengelly used it at question time from Belfast. As soon as they asked her about, them not blocking government by not going into it, she said, "Well, Sinn Féin did the same thing, and it lasted for 3 years." But it's too complicated. Well, it's not too complicated for them, but they know that they daren't look at the detail of it because they'd find out that in fact it was their fault that the thing was there down for 3 years.
But somebody in Birmingham's not going to know that.
Exactly. I'm wondering. You see, it's a sort of a serious business, this, because here you have a group of 100,000 people, all of whom totally agreed with Mervyn Gibson, and the Good Friday Agreement says that if a majority of people want it, in a border poll, there'll be a change in the constitutional position. Now, is Mervyn Gibson he clearly is sending a signal, will not accept that.
Yeah.
Now, should somebody not be questioning him in that?
I mean, that's exactly the point. Can you imagine if somebody from the nationalist community and basically made a similar type threat, Chucky Arla, or, bring back the Provos or whatever, there'd be an absolute outrage, but not a word about no surrender. Where's democracy when it comes to the Orange Order? Jude, I sat and watched and I thought, good, merciful, here we go again. No surrender at an end of a speech. And by the way, there was no compromise. I'll say it. You people, I said most nationalists were sitting saying to themselves, you people have it your way for 101 years. It was totally dishonest, totally artificial, totally undemocratic. And now when you're a minority or going towards a minority, you're still trying to tell the rest of us that you're going to call the shots. And Jude, by the way, no matter what Orangeman says, that's an unfair analysis. I defy anyone to say where it's inaccurate.
I think the key thing, Pat, and especially for people outside Ireland or maybe people in the South, is this a gathering like that, is that a forerunner of actual violence from loyalists / unionists? If things keep going the way they're going.
Mark Daly was he's the Cahill of the Shannon.
Yep. He changed his hairstyle, by the way.
It's absolutely, totally different. He used to have an Elvis haircut and now let it go its normal curly. But anyway, Mark did a thing, and apparently they did quite a lot of research. And apparently about 82% of loyalists and unionist questions said they would accept, in the event of, a poll, they would accept the result. Apparently 18% said they wouldn't. And they figure out of about that, maybe 10% would resort to violence. So you work that out.
Yeah. I think we have to keep the thing in context, but it's hard sometimes when you see these, mass bans and people coming out and, coming out with these.
But Jude, here's the thing you have to ask yourself. Years ago, when the quote unquote, when the campaign of violence from either side was on the go, Jude, see today, look at the technology. Every street corner has got a camera. Every shop has got a camera.
Mm-hmm.
The technology of the police, and when they're pursuing people, they have cameras and high tech recognition and so on. By God, it'd be a hard job these days, and to run a terrorist campaign. And I wonder how many young loyalists fancy spending 10, 20 years of their life in jail for something they know it's inevitable. Secondly, the last occasion, they had absolute overboard support from within the security service, the British. Then will that be available this time?
Yeah. Do you think that, I mean, Mary Lou and company, well, we'll come to Micheál Martin because let's move to Micheál Martin now, right, because it fits into something we're talking about. Do you think that Mary Lou has asked for a citizens' assembly to be established by the Southern government to explore the possibilities and the problems of a reunited Ireland? Now, do you think that that's something that'll be successful if unionism, as it sounds, refuse to take any part in it?
Yeah, well, you know, like that's given into the person who says no all the time. So John Hume went ahead with the Citizens' Assembly way back in the 1980s, and they provided basically the blueprint for the peace process. So sometimes, you know, like it's like getting a stubborn child. You know, if you give in to a stubborn child, you know, you'll go nowhere in any household. So somebody has to make the rules and say, right, no, wait a minute, we're going ahead. Here's what we're in offer, and so on. And maybe you entice people in by saying, look, here, have a look at that, and so on. But Jude, if you just give in and sort of say, look, unions said, no matter if you offer us every day, 12th of July, and a gold bar every day of the year, but we're still not moving, we're still British, like, Jude, nothing's going to happen. But that's sort of saying you have a veto. And I don't think any section of society has a right to a veto.
Yeah, I would like to think that Irish people, I'm thinking the people in the South, they don't think they'll have much difficulty selling it to nationalists or Republicans in the North. But I just hope that the people in the South would see it the way you've just described it, that because you have the sulking child that's not going to take any part in discussions, that you therefore cannot have discussions. I would think it's very important that you have, and do them in such a way, as you say, that it would almost entice them in, you know, raise advantages or position that they would have. You see, no matter what way you do it, they're still going to feel diminished. It's like the Deputy First Minister. They're not really diminished, but they feel they're diminished somehow. And if they were in a united Ireland, even they had almost a privileged place, or at least a thoroughly equal place, I think they'd still feel diminished. And in a way, it's understandable too.
There was a man called Frank Kern who's editor of the Derry Journal before me, and he was very good friends with an official unionist councillor called Sandy McGowan. And Frank told the story, which is simple but true. He said he used to meet Sandy after Derry City Council meeting, and he'd be walking down the street. And because Sandy was walking with us, with Frank, the guy came up to him, presumed he was another Protestant for some reason. And the guy turned around to him and he says, hey, Sandy, you have to show them who's boss. Where he was referring to the Catholic community. And I think that's been the mentality of the unionists all the time, is don't give an inch. Keep the Catholics in their place and the nationalists in their place.
I'm tempted to say that's worked out well, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It hasn't worked out well at all. Well,
okay, let's move on. I said about the Citizens' Assembly because that's a bridge to a segue to Micheál Martin, who has called for, he's in the Lebanon, as you know, and he's called for a Citizens' Assembly. Well, he's not called for it. He says he's going to set it up. A Citizens' Assembly regarding Ireland, the south of Ireland's neutrality. He says we need to identify the strength and weakness in the contribution that Ireland, what he means is the 26 counties, can make.
You seem to feel much stronger about this than I do. Why is that?
Well, I do feel very strongly. Well, I feel very strongly for two reasons. One is I think there's another matter that is in far more pressing need of a Citizens' Assembly, and that is the notion of a border poll, or what kind of new Ireland you're going to create. I think that should be at the top of the list. And he seems to sort of ignore it. The second thing is, I think Micheál is bent on creating, maybe it's a distraction, a foreign distraction from the mess, the way things are at home, between the success of Sinn Féin, the housing crisis, the cost of living. You know, if he can get something that'll draw people's attention away, like the question of Ireland's neutrality or the South's neutrality, he's going to be in favour of that. I think that's a dangerous thing to be doing. I personally think Ireland would be crazy, the south of Ireland would be crazy to allow Micheál to nudge them in the present sort of heated atmosphere because of Ukraine into joining any military assistance or any military league. I think you feel a wee bit less that way, Pat. Is that right?
Yeah, well, no, it's not that, Jude. You know something, I think sometimes, like our neutrality is a bit of a sham. like American planes land at Shannon and
yeah.
ignore the place. And like, let's be honest, we haven't exactly been neutral on the side of Russia, haven't we? We've been Russia. We've been neutral on the side of the allies, we'll call them, Britain and America, and like and the Iraq War and then various other things and so on. Now the other thing is, like Finland and Sweden had, well, they didn't have plebiscites, but they had some sort of things the other day where they decided because of the Ukrainian situation that they're going to join NATO.
Yeah.
Now we're far away, but they also say the story, Jude. I've said tomorrow morning, the Russians decided, look, we want a base in Western Europe, and Ireland's there's not a NATO, and we come in. You know, I would wonder, and we would we expect the Brits and the Americans to come in and get the Russians out of here?
Well, the short answer to that is, Pat, yes. I mean, whether we expected it or not, that's what they do, because Britain has spent, hundreds of years occupying Ireland because it claims it's a backdoor to get at them from their enemies. So I don't think, I can't imagine any circumstance where the America, the EU, Britain wouldn't pile in if Ireland, the south of Ireland was invaded. For God's sake, I don't think, I don't think there's a chance that that'll happen. And if it happened, they wouldn't say, oh, those guys didn't form part of our league, to defend Europe or whatever. So we'll not bother helping them. Of course they'd come in. I just don't like it. I think Ireland could present itself as a model for something. He's saying now, Micheál Martin is saying, we should be thinking about no longer peace monitoring, but peace enforcing.
Yeah, I heard that on our.
I don't like that at all. Ireland should be a model. Look, say this is we can do things a different way. Yeah. People don't have to go out and blow each other to pieces in order to convince them of an argument.
I've spent most of my working life in newspapers, and particularly when I looked at the South, we have been colonized first by the Brits, but in more recent times by the Americans. Most, if you look at the Republic, take 10 minutes someday and read the IDA reports, foreign direct investment, you look in the South, all the big American companies are in the Republic, and everybody is bent over backwards for Google and Microsoft, and you keep naming it, Hewlett Packard, the whole shebang. They've all got their headquarters in Dublin and their whatever. So we have been sort of colonized in one way, and I think, I don't think the Dublin government has the balls to sort of upset the Americans in any shape or form because of that sort of thing. So I sit here, but there's the one thing you did say, Jude, that one of the things we have this last while, even out in places like Lebanon, there's a guy on the news last night, a local Lebanese leader, said the Irish forces are very sort of welcome here because they've always been fair and so on. Yeah. We've got soft power. We can go places. We're on the UN Security Council. And Ireland hasn't invaded anywhere and so on. And we can go places and be sort of seen as an honest broker. That gives us, I would almost say, undue influence across the world. Maybe even more importance than a wee small island nation deserves. But we've got it. For that reason, I would like to stay neutral.
Even for that reason. But I would take it even further than that and say, well, I personally think Ireland should be striving, Ireland North and South, should be striving to create a world where people don't settle their arguments by pulling out a gun and shooting each other. Now, if I said that about private citizens, that I don't agree with my next door neighbor, I'm getting a gun, I'm going to shoot him. You would say, what kind of a savage nut are you? But that's what countries do. Yeah. They go to war. Look at the Ukraine. The guys, they say, oh, who's winning, who's on top? But what you mean is who has killed the most people?
Yeah.
So, if you think about war, it's a nutty and a crazy sort of a situation. Anyway, you could argue that there are cases where you need it, but in this case, Ireland, as you say, has got soft power, and it should cling to that and look after it and cherish it. And I think Micheál Martin really is a crafty fox. That's the truth. Yeah. I think he's trying to offload his troubles at home by getting some foreign distraction. And the thing he's using to distract them is a very dangerous thing. That Ireland, he'll say, "Oh, Sweden and Finland did it." Well, Sweden and Finland do what they want to. We don't have to do, or the Irish people don't have to do what Finland and Sweden do. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. That's up to them.
The Irish government is very, very careful not to upset the Americans. Like even the things, and I'm just throwing this in here, the mix. See, even the criticism of Israel and the criticism of Israel in recent times has been totally justified. It's always measured, and they go out of their way not to go over the top.
Yeah. Okay, let's. I've sort of lost track of the time now, but anyway, let's move on to the third item. And that was, my God, it got a lot of publicity too. The missed flights, over 1,000 missed flights at Dublin Airport, and these queues snaking all around the place.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, God. Let me tell you our own experience. We went off to Spain about 10 days ago. I think it was Wednesday the previous week. Right, we left at 9 o'clock for a flight that didn't get out until after about 10 past 7. You know, that was a full day spent, you know, with 3 hours getting to Dublin. By the way, earlier there had been problems booking the car park to even get a car park. But let's go on. It wasn't too bad that day. But right, Jude, we went into the airport. The baggage strap didn't work. The security lines were snaking around inside the building. The place is filthy, Jude, by the way. No sign. There's a lot of people getting sandwiches and they're just throwing stuff in the floor because there's no bins. There's no sign of cleaning staff. My wife went to the toilets and a lady came out and says there's no toilet rolls in some of them cubicles. There were scum around a lot of the bin or the sinks. Dude, there was no sign, and the whole place looks like it has been run down. Now I don't know who's responsible for all this and so on. But then by the way, the flight was then delayed for about an hour and a half, and so on. Right, Sunday. Fast forward to yesterday. About 50,000 people. They knew they were coming. They were not. Apparently there was a 2-hour queue outside the door before you got to the door that leads inside. I know, and there was guys said there were flights at 3 o'clock who arrived there at 6 o'clock, still missed their flights. Now, Jude, somebody somewhere. And final thing, Jude, let me just I'm going on about here. We arrived back last Wednesday at Dublin Airport. And you got off down the steps, got into them. There was rubbish piled up at the door. Inside, somebody had swept, but it hadn't lifted the litter. They had left it in a wee pile. The place was filthy. The windows in the way in, you could see they hadn't been washed in months. Grease stuck to them. Now, you know the old saying is, a friend of mine in Australia used to say, he's passed on it, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So all those people who were Spanish, Italians, and French who were on that plane, the first thing they saw was the dirty Irish. And that's a reputation we can do without.
Absolutely. I must say, I find all that very disappointing because I always felt proud of and delighted to fly out of Dublin. I always enjoyed flying out of Dublin so much more than I did out of Belfast International or Belfast City. Yeah. Call it prejudice, call it what you will, but I'm drawn to that. I always loved and I was amazed the difference between Dublin Airport when I first went to fly out from there in 1967, I think, and where the way it is now. I mean, I'm not talking about the grime. I'm talking about the size.
The grime is the word.
So on. So it really does seem an appalling pity. I'll say a couple of things quickly. One is they were talking about how long you need to come in advance in order to have a chance of getting your flight. Now, leave aside the situation now, and presumably that comes about in part, at least, by the fact that airlines were pretty well shut down during COVID. Yeah. And now they're trying to get them back up, and maybe that's something to do with it. But leave that aside. That's what the
DAA said today.
Yeah, but leave that aside. It's standard even before COVID to say, oh, you're going an international flight. Well, you need to be there at least 2 hours before.
Yeah.
Well, 10 minutes to go, Pat.
That's all right.
I don't get that. Hold on, this bloody thing is trying to get me to upgrade. No. I don't get that. Why should I have to go 2 hours in advance and sit around twiddling my thumbs? Surely an hour. If I'm there and ready to go whenever the call is made, surely that's all you should have to do.
Yeah, Jude, I don't get that. But it's become so difficult, and you're never sure now of anything about that. Sometimes, like we were relatively, the security checks only took about an hour. We were in a queue for about an hour. Apparently, they're taking up to 2 and 3 hours. Now, I heard a guy on the Claire Byrne show on RT this morning saying, look, we had to give someone like, Jude, I'm open to corrections, someone like 600 people, made them redundant during COVID and so on. And now we have to get people back on, and plus he said they have to be vetted for, obviously terrorism reasons. You don't want somebody getting on the other side, the air side, and putting a bomb on a ship or airship or whatever, or a plane. God, an airship. God, that's come back again. Anyway, so he says, and so on. And he says, that's taking time. And he says, and he says, there's very little we can do about it. But Jude, obviously the Minister for Transport, and I heard Hildegard Naughton, who I think is responsible, the Minister for State on RT News there, Jude, they seriously need to get their finger out, as does the Chief Executive Officer and the board. Like the Dublin government, our government, the Irish government, provides taxpayers' money to run Dublin.
Yeah.
And what's happening right now is totally, totally unacceptable.
Yeah, it's sort of like these telephone calls you make, and they say, "Oh, we value your custom and we value your patience and so on." Unfortunately, there's an unprecedented demand at present. My short answer to that is, we'll hire more staff, and then we won't have to wait. That doesn't arise. We'll give you soft words instead. Yeah. And then they'll say things like down at Dublin Airport, not to worry, anybody who didn't get their flight, they can be sure that another flight they'll be paid. Not have to pay anymore. So I'm going to my holidays. I've arranged with my boss to be off for the next fortnight. Exactly. Yeah. And I've gone all the bother of going down to Dublin Airport. And you tell me, oh, don't worry, we'll get you on another plane sometime, maybe in a day or two's time.
I know where you're going this, but just work that on, because it's happened to us. You're first of all, maybe you booked a hotel or an apartment on the other side. You have to pay for that. So you don't know when you're getting out. You probably have hired a car on the other side as well. They don't give a monkey's so you have to pay for that. If you have to stay in Dublin overnight, try finding a hotel in Dublin for a family for less than $1,000. Who's going to pay for that? And Jude, you keep, and this sort of we'll get you on another flight. That doesn't solve the problem at all.
I really don't understand how, in terms of, especially a place linked with flights, because actually, flying an airplane and bringing it across the ocean or wherever is fantastic, sort of a technical achievement. Absolutely. And if guys can organize that and can make sure that the guys who is at the in the cockpit is capable and so on, and they are. I mean, they're fantastic. Ryanair is such a success story for them. If they can do that, they can look after their passengers when they're on the ground. They can, create a situation where there's enough staff to look after them. And why the hell should we be paying with our time of 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours? Because they don't feel like, they don't want the expense of hiring another people to do the groundwork. I think it's ridiculous. I think people are far too patient. The amount of money goes into...
what the guy said today, he says, right, we had, as you indicated earlier, he says, like, substantial number of staff go. We paid off, I think he's up to 1,000 all over Dublin Airport. And during COVID, we didn't expect such a massive bounce back in terms of people going to things and so on. And he said, for instance, on Saturday, there was the European Cup final and was it Paris as well, a rugby final, and then the Liverpool Real Madrid final in Paris and so on. So Jude basically says it took them by surprise how quick tourism bounced back, and the demand for foreign holidays, the pent-up demand.
Are you excusing him on those grounds? Do you agree that's fair enough?
Bollocks, Jude.
Absolutely. I mean, if they wouldn't have seen that coming, I don't know what.
The man and the galloping horse would have said.
Exactly. The proverbial man and the galloping horse, the blind man. Okay, we've only about 5 minutes maybe left now. So let's go to at least one more item, and that is something that I started hinting at, that you are in a state of mourning. 5 minutes exactly. State of mourning because Donegal got beat yesterday.
Yeah. I did,
they deserve to get beat.
I sat and watched the end of the match. Now I was missing for a wee bit, but I got the end of the match. And Jude, it wasn't exactly riveting football, I have to admit. It reminded me of Barcelona, ticky-tacky. They were going over and back, over and back.
But Barcelona used to do that very well. I like those triangles.
I liked it at the start, and then it just was so predictable. And everybody was playing against Barcelona. It was inevitable somebody gets sent off because they'd make a tackle, and I think I was part of that. And Barcelona used to get all these wee footballers about 5'4". But anyway, that's the it. The match. I have to say at the end of it, I would love to say Donegal got robbed, but we didn't. on the very simple basis, Jude, when it came to the whipping of the crutches, the one team that went for it was Derry. They actually looked hungrier. And the fact that it's 24 years since they last won an Ulster title, as my wife says last night, God, fair play them. I would give it to them. So,
well, it means a lot to them, you know. I know at least one parish parochial house that has a sign up saying, Derry, keep the faith. And they're not referring to the religious faith. They're referring to the sporting faith. So they must be very pleased. When I was young, Derry was the powerhouse, certainly one of the powerhouses of the north. Tyrone was nothing compared to them. But it was good to see them back. I screwed up yesterday. I really did. I was watching that, and I watched it up until full time. And I thought the guy said then they were going to go to extra time. They went to extra time, did it?
They went to extra time, man.
I flipped back because I was very interested to see how was Nottingham Forest doing.
Getting on,
Because I always have, since Brian Clough, I've always had a soft spot for them. So I was watching that, and then I flipped back. I went back again to RTE, and lo and behold, the pundits and the presenter were standing with a background of an empty field. So I must have missed the whole. Was it only 20 minutes altogether?
No, 10 minutes each. 10 minutes each way.
Oh, you see, I thought it was going to at least 15.
It came up, and now it was a warm day yesterday, and they are super fit. But a lot of the players on both teams. There was one thing that I thought Derry did was much because of this tight marking each. The Derry goalkeeper kept coming out and soloing the ball. And that created a lot of space, and because everybody else was knackered. It was a great tactic. He's obviously quite a good footballer.
Yeah, I think there's going to be more and more of that now. I've seen that a couple of times with other Gaelic goalies. The Tyrone goalie used to do that, or was doing that quite a bit as well.
The Derry goalkeeper made a significant change because everybody was marked up tight, and they were all, and he was creating space. And then there was no chances coming to Donegal, but there was a lot coming to Derry.
So I thought the commentators were very critical, but I thought it was pretty. There was a tedious bit at the very beginning, but I thought it really perked up. Now we're down to less than 2 minutes, Pat, so I have to talk very quickly. Liverpool didn't win. I say, and I am very, very fond of Liverpool. I say they didn't win because they weren't as good as the other team. Would that be fair? I
totally disagree. Absolutely, totally disagree. Jude, 24 shots to 4. They were the first half. They played them off the park. But I think what happened in Liverpool, and I genuinely right. First of all, Courtois, the keeper of Real Madrid, get about 8 world-class saves.
He plays for them. He plays for the opposition. You have to cut that in.
Dude, there's some nights a goalkeeper, as I is in, and nothing's going to get past him. Courtois never played like that when he played for Chelsea.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah, he had a terrific game.
And the other thing as well, Jude, I think the season finally kept. Liverpool struggled against Wolves in the last game, and I think they've played so many games. They were in the European Cup final. They were in the FA Cup final. They were into the Premiership League, the Premier League, onto the very.
So you're making excuses for them, Pat. They were beaten. What? They were beaten. You're making excuses for them, and they were beaten. And I'm sorry they were beaten because I love Liverpool. I really, really, really do. But we're beaten, and I still think.
I remember Brian McNiff and all these guys.
Yeah,
it's very hard for GA players to get up for 2 big matches in a row. Liverpool their players have been playing big matches week in.
Okay, our time's practically up. Yeah, I'll give you 5 seconds to say something about Leinster being beaten. 5 seconds, literally.
Jude, I watched it. That was the best defensive performance I've ever seen until about the last 3 seconds.
I didn't see it. But I was very pleased because Ronan O'Gara is the coach for La Rochelle. And I like Ronan O'Gara since he met the Queen Elizabeth with his hands in his pockets. Okay.
On that note, good luck.